Aaron is muted. Am I muted? If not, welcome to the Twitch FO Radio Hour. I'm Mike Tanier with my co-host, the lovely and talented Aaron Schatz.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, can hear me now. Hi, hello. I'm no longer muted. Hello. Welcome to Football Outsiders Radio Hour. Here I am, Aaron Schatz, with Mike Tanier. And we're supposed to have a guest, and we're hoping that she appears at some point soon. Dr. Jen Welcher is supposed to be joining us, another member of the Twitch football NFL family.
Yes.
And we have a whole bunch of questions and things. We were going to talk to her about coaching and working under Bruce Arians and working in the AAF and all kinds of things. And she's not here yet. So until then, we're going to just sort of vamp. We're like, we could talk football for an hour and just vamp.
Aaron, it's not a setback and it's not a reason to worry. But Dr. Jen Welter is not here yet.
That is true. But
brought to you by the Dallas Cowboys media department.
Oh, yes, the tweet that shook Dallas. Now, we don't want you to worry that the quarterback is going in for another MRI.
It's like sitting down an 8-year-old and saying, well, Daddy's going to be in the hospital for a couple of days, but there's no reason to worry. And you can watch the kid's hands start to shake when you say, like no one's ever sat me down and talked like this before. No one's tweeted anything like that before. You know?
The other fun thing about this show today is there should be new emojis for people who are in the Twitch chat that are pictures of the Football Outsiders crew.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if those will work, but we'll see.
Yes.
If people can post those, I think that they should be there.
It's your chance to perform some real acts of bullying against us, because there's some goofy looking pictures of us in there, but they're fun. I enjoy them. Yeah, I look great. I can't speak for the rest of you. Can't speak for Vince.
Looking, as Scott pointed out, he got to replace Keanu Reeves in one of the emojis, so
nice.
He won the emoji battle.
Nice.
So I think I can't tell if Philbo Baggins is trying to post one of the emojis where it says FO Pog in the chat. If that's him attempting to, maybe the emojis are not working. I'm not sure.
Pog or Ponger? What is it?
We're flying by the seat of our pants with this week's show. So this is going to be a little different, but hopefully whether you're listening later on podcast or YouTube or watching right now on Twitch, remember we're live every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully you are enjoying our rambling and trying to get things ready. So let's talk about the season, because the preseason, you wrote a walkthrough today and you previewed the first week of the preseason. So let's talk about the preseason. I mentioned to start with that our teams both play tonight.
Yes. And
so I was going to say the preseason launches tonight, but I guess the preseason launched last week with the Hall of Fame game. But the regular preseason launches tonight. And both my Patriots and your Eagles play this evening.
Yep. And to back up, if you remember last week, I was excited to play the over in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
It didn't work out because Mike McCarthy decided to let the punter kick. So I'm watching this game. I played the first half over. Again, the goal is to stay awake while having cocktails. And the Cowboys kept getting into field goal range and sending Niswander. Is that what the young man's name is?
I'm not sure.
Not Greg Zuerlein, not some camp leg, but the punter out there. And if you watch anything of the Hall of Fame game, you need to see these 27-yard field goal attempts go at an almost isosceles angle to the field and like are hitting the pylons on the side and hitting random fans that are like, getting popcorn some far away. So that was it. They obviously did not hit the over, did not hit the game over, did not hit the first half over. Now we've got tonight's games, and I think we were debating off camera which is more watchable. I've watched enough Patriots games to be like, oh my God, they're not going to show anything. You're going to be seeing Brian Hoyer for probably 2.5 quarters. But at the same time, you do get to see the Mac Jones debut, and that's.
I think the Patriots is more watchable because you're going to get to see the rookie quarterback for a bit.
Right, and that's going to be something. I think you're going to get a little bit of Cam as well. And refresh me, who do the Patriots have tonight?
They play the Washington football team.
And yeah, I was on Washington radio the other day, and they're like, "What are you looking for?" And I was like, "I'm looking for Mac Jones." For Washington, it's like every report coming out of there is like, well, the defense is what you would expect, that the defense is winning every single practice. Ryan Fitzpatrick is being as charming and as windswept with his hair as ever, and kind of competent and checking down in practices. And there's not a lot to look for on the bench of that team. If you look at Washington and say, what jobs are up for grabs here? What interesting rookies are there? Middle linebacker, Jamin Davis, that's not somebody you're going to be excited about in training camp. There are new faces on offense, like Curtis Samuel. He's hurt, so you're not going to see a lot now.
There's some interesting wide receiver depth. The two Sims not brothers, Steven Sims, who was like one of our top prospects a year ago, and then Cam Sims, and there's the 3rd round pick, Diami Brown.
Yeah, and he can fly. He
can
fly.
There's Shaka Toney. I like Shaka Toney. I can't believe he waited till the 7th round. Penn State kid. He's a defensive end.
Yeah. Okay. So they got edge rushers. They've got a couple of edge rushers there. I'm kind of sneaking a peek here at the depth chart. It's just not a lot there, because even if Shaka Toney really balls out, you're talking about a guy who's going to be a backup this year to Chase Young and Montez Sweat. So that's good. Right.
They don't have a lot of job battles in Washington where you're like, well, you could see a guy who's going to start. Mm-hmm. Like the second stringer is aiming for the job.
Right. You don't get that. You don't have a young quarterback, which they should have gotten a young quarterback. I don't need to see Tyler Heineke anymore. I guess that's probably interesting to fans who think he might be a prospect. I don't think he is. And it's similar in New England. N'Keal Harry's hurt, I believe, right? Is that correct?
No, N'Keal Harry has been balling out in camp.
Okay.
N'Keal Harry, after that trade request, has actually had a lot of people saying he's been playing very well in camp this year.
Okay.
Which I think is meaningless. But I mean, he's still not going to. Their starters are basically Aguilar, Bourne, and Myers, I would think. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, they're going to go a lot to tight end. So really, it's just Aguilar and Myers.
Right. And it's Hunter Henry's hurt, right? That's correct.
Hunter Henry is hurt, yes.
Right. So, I mean, you wouldn't see him anyway. You're not going to see Jonnu Smith. The other tight ends are something. I mean, that's not the idea that you're going to.
The Patriots do have a lot of depth. So, yeah, if they want to show those 2 tight end looks tonight, they're going to be showing it with Matt Lacoste and Devin Asiasi, because
oh my God.
They also have Troy Fumagalli, the guy who used to be in Denver for a while. Dalton Keene went on IR, so he's out for the year. There's a lot of depth in New England, so you could definitely see some interesting players tonight. Like, for example, the 2nd round pick from last year, Josh Uche. I don't know if it's Uche or Uche. I don't think he's technically a starter. There's Harvey Lange, who's an interesting player. There's Terez Hall, who played okay last year. There are extra safeties. There's lots of extra safeties sitting around the team. Jalen Mills is around there. So I think you could definitely see some interesting players on the second team defense for the Patriots. With all those players they added on defense, there's a good amount of depth there.
Yeah, I think there's
Heineke.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys who I think can play, but sometimes there's a difference between can play and like I want to see them in the preseason. Because if you say, well, you're going to have Troy Fumagalli out there. It's like, well, I don't necessarily need to see a lot of him.
Well, it brings up an interesting question, which is, will Jalen Mills change his hair color? Because the idea of the green hair was to match being on the Eagles, wasn't it?
I thought so. And then he had the Green Goblin nickname that caught on from him.
So now he's stayed green, but wouldn't it be more fitting if he now dyed his hair red and blue?
Right. And he could be like, what, U.S. agent? Like what? No, like fake racist cap. No. Be real Captain America. I don't know.
Captain Super Patriot. That was actually, I believe that was U.S. agent's original name was Super Patriot.
That's right. And then
I read that Captain America run back in the 80s.
Oh my goodness, it was something. And they really did a good job with it in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, updating it.
All right, I'm going to set you up now. Here we go. I'm going to set you up. Bill Houston asks in the chat. We're going to skip ahead on the preseason games before we talk about them in order. Mm-hmm. Why does Sean Payton not show more enthusiasm towards Jameis? Hill seems better suited as an excellent gadget player or a number 2. Take it away.
Why? There's a couple of things. I've been reading everything I can coming out of New Orleans, out of Metairie. Winston is what Winston is. I think we went after that multi-interception. What was it? 30 interception. I lost track of now.
Yeah, it doesn't fit into his career at all. Most years, Winston is about the 15th or 16th best quarterback in the league. The only exception is that year where he was in the Arians offense, and we know that quarterbacks throw more interceptions in the Arians offense. Even Brady threw more interceptions in the Arians offense, even though more interceptions for Brady meant like 3 more.
Right.
But historically, Winston has been around the 16th best quarterback in the league. Now, that's obviously with better receivers than he's going to have in New Orleans, but like to me, it's no contest. Jameis Winston is the better quarterback of these two.
It seems like it's no contest to everyone but Sean Payton. And then I'm reading the reports, like day-by-day reports out of camp, and you're getting those Winston interceptions. You're getting those Winston turnovers. You know how coaches are with those turnovers. And maybe Arians is different, but they see that interception and their heads explode and their blood pressure goes up 100 points. And they're like, give me captain check down. And so I don't see it either. I think if Winston was progressing the way like we all thought he was going to progress, like in 2018 or whatever, it would be no contest. If he's showing more of what we saw in 2019, but Sean Payton must have seen in practices in 2020, then we have the situation we have now where even the beat reporters are saying it's kind of a dead heat. No one has stood out, and that this is still a 50-50 split. So it doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm not there every day, and I don't know if Sean Payton's looking at his playbook and saying that was a mistake, that was a mistake, that was a mistake.
Right. I've always wondered, like, I've always felt like, don't coaches learn more from the structure of practice than they do from these preseason games where the other team is showing the most vanilla defenses that they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's part that and part that, because you can run 50 reps of something in your practices against all different forms, because you can tell the defense do this, tell the defense do this, tell the defense do this, whereas you only get 7 or 8 reps in an actual game, a preseason game, I should say. But at the same time, I think they definitely need to see, because guys will get stale covering each other over and over again. The defenders will start to be like, I know the offense's play because I've practiced against it for 2 years. So you do need to see that as well. And one thing we did see in the Hall of Fame game, that was not vanilla defenses. Both the Steelers and the Cowboys were like, let's blitz the holy living crap out of Ben DiNucci and Mason Rudolph for that game, which is why they couldn't clear the over. So it's not necessarily like, oh, you're just going to be running cover 2 for the entire game. So, I mean, I don't know. I think we've established that Sean Payton seems to think Taysom Hill is something that he's not showing us, that we don't think he is. Payton's put a lot of personal investment in this Taysom Hill experiment, and I think we're continuing to see that.
Yeah, it really wouldn't surprise me if he was the starter to start the season, even though I think it's a huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, our Saints projection is half Winston and half Hill. If it's Hill to start the season and I do a full projection on Hill, it's going to be lower anyway because of Michael Thomas.
Right.
And because of the David Onyemata suspension will drop their defensive projection a little bit. But there's no question that if Hill is the quarterback, that projection is going to be a good amount lower.
Right. I think what we're learning in August, and maybe we'll see something different, is that the future moving forward at quarterback is not really on the Saints roster right now. Jameis was backsliding. That's what my interpretation is. Jameis was backsliding from 2018 to 2019 and became too turnover prone. And Taysom Hill is this, I don't know how you want to call it, like this Josh Johnson level, scrambly, backup-y guy. Like he can actually sort of become that level of guy where it's not an embarrassment for him to be out there. And they're going to keep playing this game until they come up with a real solution to quarterback. Even
Josh Johnson, I mean, God, he's been on 137 teams by now between all the extra leagues that he's been in. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. You know, he's on a team now, right? Didn't he sign somewhere?
Yeah, he just signed. I forget where. I'll look it up real quick. But I was trying to find that example of the knock around scrambly backup. Certainly not as good as Fitz, because Fitz is kind of that knock around scrambly backup, but somebody who keeps getting opportunities. And I think based on what I saw last year, maybe that's where you can slot Taysom Hill, and he is that guy. He could be like your adequate backup. But this pantomime that he's going to suddenly blossom into a starter at 32, It seems absurd.
I think he's useful as the gadget guy.
Yeah,
he's got good ratings as a receiver.
Yeah, useful slot guy. Josh Johnson's on the Jets, folks.
Oh, he could be number 2 there.
He could.
I mean, right? Isn't it James Morgan is the name of the guy who's number 2, was a 4th round pick last year?
I believe you are correct. Of course, those guys got some reps early in the year. All the stories out of the Jets camp has been the struggles of Zach Wilson. It's James Morgan and Mike White, who was a knock-around Cowboys guy out of Western Kentucky. Yeah, he was Cowboys, and he's been to the Jets for a while.
I'm going to give Wilson credit, though. Did you see that quote that he gave about practice?
Yeah, refresh me.
He gave a great quote about practice where he basically said, look, sometimes in practice, I'm just trying stuff to see if it works.
Yeah. That's a lesson to all of us who are beats. Well, I'm not a beat, but like lesson to all of us who are observing camp.
It's a classic spring training baseball thing, right? Yeah. There are pitchers in spring training who are trying out a new pitch, and they throw that pitch a lot, and they get hammered because sometimes they don't have it ready, or they'll never have it ready. Like that pitch is just, it's an experiment, and they're playing around with it. And so you look at spring training numbers and you go, oh, well, this guy's screwed this year. But it turns out he's throwing some pitch that he's going to throw 5% of the time during the regular season. Well, the same could go for football players. They could be trying new things. Quarterbacks could be trying new things in the practice. I'm not a big fan of practice stats.
Oh, well, practice stats are terrible. And the other thing is, you don't know if the drill was, there's a minute on the clock, it's 3rd and 15. So your job is to force that ball down the field. You cannot throw the check down, or if you do, that's considered a loss. Sometimes the observers on the sideline know this, the local reporters know this, because sometimes the coach will set up 3rd down and put like a minute on the clock and put the chains in. Sometimes you'll do that and the entire press pool will not even notice that, or decide not that that's invisible at that moment, that they don't realize this is a situational drill, or they'll mention it at the time, but then they'll just throw all the stats together. So you do get a lot of things like that. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. The one thing is, if I hear Jameis is throwing interceptions in practice, and it's like, well, he makes that quote, and you observe that, but he's got a reputation for interceptions. He's competing for a job. We're not getting this word, oh, well, he's going to start the first 2 preseason games. You have to realize that there becomes a preponderance of evidence that, those interceptions are the interceptions that put him in this position, the reason why he's not the starting quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now.
So this episode has sort of turned into an Ask Us Anything. So take any questions in the stream chat on Twitch. And again, this is why you should watch the show on Twitch live, because then you can interact with us and ask us questions. Bill Houston, how much longer does Jack Easterby last in Houston? I say this season is it after the Texans go 5-12. Excellent FO Texans analysis in the Almanac this year. You could do a whole episode on the McNair Easterby quagmire. Well, if we had a whole episode on Houston, we would have to have Rivers McCown on, because he's our Houston expert on the nightmare that is the Houston Texans situation. I mean, it's really hard to answer that question, because if we were going by how football teams are normally run, there wouldn't be a question about how much longer Easterby would last, because he wouldn't have this much influence on the team in the first place.
Right. This is Jafar. This is an Aladdin movie. That's Jafar. He has the mind control staff. He's got, and if you know about anything about Aladdin, folks, they made sequels to the Aladdin movie, and Jafar was the villain in like every one, because Jafar always comes back. Because when you've got that kind of mind control-y, Svengali, I'm sort of a faith leader and a philosophical leader, and Rasputin type character, they keep coming back. So there's no precedent for this. I mean, what happened yesterday with the press pool? There is no precedent for something that absolutely bonkers happening in an NFL. For those of you who don't know, the Houston Texans tried to announce that training camp was over, that they were starting their regular week-to-week preparation. And what that means for the local press pool is that they're not allowed to watch practices anymore, and they get a strict limitation on who they're allowed to video, take pictures of, and interview. Now, if a team was allowed to restrict access in early August to the media, if this was allowed, Bill Belichick would have done it in 2003, and it would still be in effect. Tom Coughlin would have had us taken out and dragged behind cars around the Meadowlands parking lot if he had the power to do these things. The idea that Easterby and Cesario and those guys thought they could just do this. Goodbye, John McClain. Goodbye, Shireen, everybody out the door, because we don't want you asking any more questions about Deshaun Watson or et cetera. The fact that they could do that, thought they could do that, was bonkers. Well, sure enough, one phone call to the NFL media department comes down the other way. The reporters are there. Unfortunately, it means the reporters have to keep watching the Texans, which I would not personally want to do. But that's the level of like unrealistic chaos that's running that
organization
right now. They don't understand the basics of their responsibilities and rights there. So,
they're stuck with this quarterback who doesn't want to play for them, and they don't want to play, and none of us feel he should be playing, but the league won't put him on the
right.
I can't remember the name of the list that he's supposed to be on.
The exempt list.
Yeah.
The exempt list.
It's an awful situation.
It is. And it's hard. Like when I talk about those games, like I don't want to watch Packers against Texans at all. I think that's a national televised game.
Is it really?
I think so.
Oh, I think God.
Right. Now, it's hard. And I say right now, folks, it's hard when you're talking about Deshaun Watson and you're worried you're going to trip over something and say something inappropriate because there are all these allegations of sexual misconduct. And if you say it wrong, you might not say allegedly the right amount of times or whatever. That's bad. So when you're talking off the cuff like we are, you're left talking about the situation, the incidents, the legal troubles. And I do not want to hear television announcers spending 20 minutes circling back to that over and over again while not having enough information, while trying not to be offensive. Meanwhile, the guys on sipping Gatorade on one sideline, Aaron Rodgers is scowling on the other sideline. And I'm interested in seeing Jordan Love.
I was going to say, like you said, no one wants to watch this game, but aren't you kind of curious about Jordan Love? Like we've seen zero of Jordan Love in the NFL because there was no preseason last year.
Yeah, I am. And he's behind Justin Fields and Trey Lance.
As far as people you want to see.
Right. Because it's like, oh, he shines, trade rumors. Well, I don't think anybody's going to trade for Jordan Love. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, orders Gutenkais to get rid of him or whatever. But I do want to see him, but it's like that's the only thing.
I don't know. Wouldn't it be interesting if Jordan Love comes out and is gangbusters in the preseason and that starts the trade rumors? That would be interesting.
Yeah, that is. But that's it. That's the only thing I got going for me in this game. Meanwhile, the announcers are going to be like just punishing, trying to talk about Deshaun Watson and trying to talk about Aaron Rodgers.
Tonight, I will say this about Pittsburgh and Philly, because I've got up on my screen NFL's like one thing to watch for every team in the preseason. And they're like, watch for Najee Harris. Do you really think Pittsburgh needs to run Najee Harris that much in the preseason?
I was mad in the second quarter of that game that he was still out there. Remember, I bet the over. I wanted the best players on the field out there because he's running off tackle late in the second quarter behind their backup offensive line, their starting offensive line stinks. And like, how many times do we need to see Najee Harris? Get him out of there. Let's take another look at Jalen Samuels or whoever McFadden kid and all those other guys.
Yeah, Benny Snell, who's sort of on the outside looking in. Most people think he's not going to make the team.
That seems reasonable.
I don't know why, by the way. I want to thank everybody who's trying to put up emojis in the chat. They're not working. I don't know why they're not working.
Are they working for them and we can't? Well, you get a regular feed here.
I'm getting the regular feed, so I'm seeing the thing, and I don't know why the emojis aren't working. We're going to get on that for next year to make sure those emojis work. All right, we've got a couple questions here. First of all, from Bill Houston, can elite players and coaches transcend bad ownership? For example, Joe Burrow with the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, they can. Teams with bad owners have been competitive.
I mean, the Bengals were competitive. The Bengals went through a 3 to 4 year period where they were very strong, especially on offense. They were deep. They had a lot going for them.
Yeah. I mean, really in Houston, because they were before Jafar showed up. I mean, Bill O'Brien was a train wreck of a human being too. Let's be
right. But they were making the playoffs every year in a bad division. But Deshaun Watson was,
and JJ was. And DeAndre was, and for a while Clowney was. So yeah, you can get a kernel of guys together, and you can transcend it to a degree. I mean, I don't know if I try to think about bad organizations or badly run organizations that won Super Bowls. It's hard to say because the Patriots won 1 million of them, so that kind of So you weren't going to get there. But
there's a lot, by the way, of like, can you win a Super Bowl if you do X? That's sort of screwed up by the fact that the Patriots won so many of them over the last 2 decades.
right.
So it turns out that like what you want to do to win the Super Bowls is to do whatever the Patriots did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are other ways to do it.
Right. That's exactly it. Like, how do you win a Super Bowl? A, have Tom Brady. B, have Bill Belichick. C,
Right.
whatever. ... D, win Super Bowl. Right. Because Jordan and the Bulls did the same thing. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Analysis of and there's a whole generation of NBA stars. Well, he never won a ring. Well, there was only 5 guys who won the rings. They were the Bulls for that
Right.
entire time, except for the 2 years Olajuwon won it when Jordan was playing baseball. So you do get that. But right, the way the NFL is set up, an inept owner who gets the first overall pick gets that quarterback or gets that superstar, and has all this cap space and can get the guys. So you can transcend it. The question is, I don't know how far. And in this NFL, I don't know if when it's as bad as it is in Houston right now, is it going to be a situation where everybody who can leave will, which is kind of what's happening.
Right. I mean, I've been saying, I feel like they signed so many players in Houston that they have like an expansion team roster.
Yep.
The problem is there's no young quarterback. Usually an expansion team has the young quarterback that they drafted. But if you put Deshaun Watson, like if Deshaun Watson were suddenly cleared of all legal charges and decided he wanted to play for the Texans, that team is in the running in that division. You put Deshaun Watson with the roster that they have now. And I know that they didn't play well last year, but they were better than their record last year. Normally, Deshaun Watson should lift a team up past 4-12. I think that team is in the running with Deshaun Watson at the quarterback position. So I do think that goes to show you that transcendent quarterbacks can transcend bad ownership, at least to get teams to the playoffs. I don't know if there's ever been a point where a team has won the Super Bowl and I've been like, because like Jim Irsay is goofy, but I wouldn't call him a bad owner.
Right. No, he's a goofy owner. You're right.
Yeah.
He writes checks and makes wacky tweets and then stays out of the way of the organization.
I wouldn't say that Peyton Manning was able to transcend that Irsay is a bad owner. I don't think that that's the case because the team has been successful without Manning, with the luck years, they've been successful. And last year they were successful. So I'm trying to think of like teams that have won the Super Bowl over the last 2 decades. Is there any of those teams where you're like, that's a bad owner? I mean, the Ravens, I think.
No, I mean,
everyone feels have a good owner.
He stays out of things because he lets the general managers run the team. I wouldn't say, we won't talk about whether or not he's a good human here or there or not, but he runs the team properly.
Right.
Jera, I would call probably a bad owner, but when they won the Super Bowl, he had Jimmy Johnson in charge of everything.
Right. Laurie is a good owner.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of teams that have won the Super Bowl over the last, the Bolins are good owners when Denver won the Super Bowl. Like, I can't think of a team that won the Super Bowl where you're like, well, they had to overcome the bad owner.
Right. No, and I think you're right. And we were talking about Houston, and I'm looking at them as like, for example, on their offensive line, they still got Laramie Tunsil on that line. They've got Marcus Cannon. He's hurt right now on that line. They've got Justin Britt, who's a starter. If you rate the offensive lines in the NFL, they're probably 20th, 22nd.
Right. Everything on Houston is like 22nd.
Yeah. Now 22nd and everything probably comes out to 29th or 30th overall.
When you have Tyrod Taylor quarterback, it sure does.
It sure does. It sure does.
The other question is from S. Vanderpool. Who is your favorite young quarterback in the league?
Justin Herbert, I suppose. Although, what? I don't.
Herbert, of the players who are in their like 2 or 3 years, Herbert is the best.
Yeah, he's the best. I got to admit, I don't have like strong. I mean, Lamar Jackson would probably be with Patrick Mahomes, obviously, but.
Right. I think Patrick Mahomes still counts as a young quarterback. Who's your favorite to watch? The answer is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. And one thing about Herbert is, I like what I saw. I don't have like these great strong convictions about him right now, in part because my experience with the Chargers last year was loading them up on Tuesday morning on film, not like sitting there rooting for them as some playoff team.
I'm interested in Burrow.
Yeah. Because
to me, it's interesting to see a player whose strengths seem to mostly be mental.
Right.
Like how successful can he be? Right. All his strengths are processing and reading defenses and pre-snap and like not throwing deep and not being mobile. It's really interesting to see like how successful can you be where the mental processing stuff is where all your strengths lie.
Right. And that does make him an interesting player. And I do want to see more from him. And I am hopeful because he was having a really bad early camp. It sounds like he's starting to pull out of that we get to see a good version of him there. The one guy I'm actually most interested in seeing, I think a lot of people are this week among the rookies. It's probably a cross between some of them, but I want to see Justin Fields. I really want to see.
Yeah. I mean, Trey Lance also could be, I mean, what Trey Lance could do in the Shanahan offense, we all agree is like freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like it could be amazing. And of course I'm a Patriots fan. So I want to see Mac Jones. I want to see Mac Jones succeed. Mm-hmm. Is Mac Jones the fifth of the 5 quarterbacks from this year? Yes. Do I want to see him succeed? Yes.
And I want to see Jalen Hurts, but I have a feeling tonight I'm going to see 2 series that are going to be kind of like runaround series. But I want to see him succeed. I'm not necessarily thinking I'm going to see it in the next 7 hours or so, but I'm hoping for that too.
So I guess I would say Mahomes is my favorite young quarterback if he counts.
Right.
If we want someone younger, I guess I'd say I really want to see Trey Lance.
Okay.
And if you say who's the most interesting, I'd say Burrow.
Okay. I'll probably go with Fields instead of Lance, although I want to see Lance. I don't want to come across like I'm some sort of Lance hater or anything like that. But I want to see Fields. And I'm curious how that's going to play out.
So back to preseason games, one of the things we were talking about before we got on. So Friday night's games, you've got Tennessee at Atlanta in the Arthur Smith revenge game. Tennessee just hired.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I'm back. Guy. Tennessee was the last team that had no analytics guys on Seth Walder's grand list of analytics guys on every NFL team. So that means that every NFL team now has at least one analytics person in the front office.
Yep. He looked at Derrick Henry and his head promptly exploded and he resigned. No, just kidding. But you ever think it would get to this point, man?
I think it's great. I think it's fabulous. I mean, for the last 5 or 6 years, I felt like this was eventually where it was going. When I started in 2003, God no.
Right.
I never did. Once we got to the point where every NBA team and every MLB team had an analytics person, like about 7 or 8 years ago, I felt like it was inevitable that it would happen in the NFL also. It was just going to take a little longer.
And what's next now? I mean, I think these guys have to get a little closer to the center of the decision-making power.
I honestly thought by now, you would have a general manager in the league who grew up reading Football Outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
We still are a few years away from that.
Right.
From having a general manager who would literally be like, I was reading Football Outsiders when I was in high school. But it's going to happen. Just the way you have general managers in baseball who are like, I grew up reading Bill James. You're going to have general managers in football who were reading me in 2006 and 2007, and now are 35, 40 years old and are going to become general managers. And that's going to be exciting. What?
And reading me too. It will be exciting. I think it will happen. Bill James does have a 20-year head start on us.
This NFL article that I'm looking at, they've got to get away from the idea that starters are what you're looking for in the preseason. For example, how much Kyle Pitts do you think we're going to see tomorrow night?
A series, maybe. And probably one bootleg rollout 4-yard, into the flat play so he get his feet wet. Is this off of ESPN or
this is NFL.com.
Okay.
They talk about the one guy they talk about in Tennessee, Atlanta is that you're not going to see Derrick Henry because you're not.
Of course.
You're going to see a lot of Darrington Evans. So, okay, that's interesting. He was a 3rd-round pick last year. Let's see some Darrington Evans.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember he's another power back if I remember too. No, he's actually a littler guy.
The most interesting backup in Tennessee is an offensive lineman, probably Dylan Raduns.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know how much there is to watch in the 2nd and 3rd and 4th quarter of Tennessee, Atlanta.
Yeah, that's why I kind of made the snooze mark on that one, because it's like there's there's no interesting backup quarterbacks. Again, yeah, looking at the backup running backs will be interesting there, but there's not a lot to say, oh, this is the game I have to watch or even pay attention to.
Here's an interesting, by the way, I never know how much faith to put in the R-Lads depth charts. They're usually very good, and I don't know how much they reflect the depth charts that the teams release around this time, and I don't know how much BS there is in the depth charts that the teams release. For Atlanta, they actually have Dante Fowler as a backup.
One of the common things is motivate the guy.
Yeah.
Motive, especially when it's somebody like Fowler, who, historically has needed some reminders from time to time that nothing is being handed to them. Because I've seen that in a lot of those depth charts. Those depth charts are put together by the media department. A lot of times with like a sign off by the coach, like just put anything down. They tend to be close. If you are really interested in a lot of the stuff I did in walkthrough is you try to read day to day. The coaches will say things like, oh, I'm giving the 3rd round pick reps with the first team, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll also see it in practice. The local beats will say, oh, this guy has been practicing with the ones over and over and over again. And that does give you a better sense there. So, yeah, the main thing is I look at the R-Lads depth chart. I look at the other depth charts. And I say, what really will we see? And if a guy's listed 5th on the depth chart, we're probably not going to see a lot of them until silly time.
Yeah. Buffalo at Detroit Friday night. That one's on NFL Network. And the interesting is if they play Penei Sewell more than like a series.
Yes.
That he may be going up against one of their top picks for Buffalo, because Buffalo used their top 2 picks on edge rushers.
Yeah.
Gregory Rousseau and Carlos Basham. So that could be interesting to see is if Penei Sewell plays more than just like one series going up against that, then you're seeing young guy against young guy. That's kind of interesting to see. And
young guys who are like opt-outs too in a couple of these cases. So guys we haven't seen since 2019, which might mean they get more time out there. That's the good thing about a preseason game, though. You're not invested in the final score and anything. If I'm just going to turn that game on and just watch the offensive line, I will happily do that because I don't necessarily need to see Jared Goff, or I guess we do have to look at the receivers, but like, we can really focus on matchups like the ones
you're going to see Mitchell Trubisky.
Ugh.
And you're going to see Aaron Rodgers' favorite receiver.
Yes.
Jake Kumaro.
They should throw 50 screen passes there just as a trolling mechanism.
There's some interesting receiving depth because they also have that kid Isaiah McKenzie who had a year. He had a he had a game with like 3 touchdowns or something ridiculous, and he's their 5th receiver, so he's playing Friday night.
Right.
That's the kind of guy who plays the first half of the first preseason game is the 5th receiver.
Gabriel Davis is another guy that had a lot of buzz coming out.
Yeah, and I don't know if he counts as a starter at this point, so he may be playing tomorrow night too. Useful title points out AJ Epinesa, also for Buffalo's pass rush, who was a 2nd-round pick from last season, who we haven't seen in preseason.
That's right. We've never seen him in preseason. He played a little bit last year. He didn't necessarily stand out, I think. Or did he get hurt? I'm drawing a blank.
No, he
now.
played.
He did play.
Played. I'd have to look up the numbers in the book, but
right. So yeah,
he's a little larger. He's a little like plays like that Seattle role where Seattle used to have one of their defensive ends that was actually more of a run stopper than a pass rusher, like the Chris Clemens role.
Yeah, like the elephant guy.
Yeah, like you would have the Leo on one side and the elephant on the other. Epinesa is more of the elephant.
Right. And I do want to see more of him. And competition for the wide receiver slot. Hate to see anybody lose their job there in Buffalo at wide receiver, but maybe somebody will shine.
There's some interesting, interesting depth where you're not going to just be watching schmoes who are going to be pumping gas in Tallahassee in 2 weeks. Like there's some good stuff there. Corvos asks, of the young quarterbacks that we talked about, which one has the highest potential of leading a franchise to the Super Bowl in the next few seasons?
Lance?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the structure around them and the coaching and the ownership and the structure around them. I think most people would say it was Lance in the Shanahan system with the talent that they put together in San Francisco has the best chance of leading a team to the Super Bowl.
That's it. And I keep talking in walkthrough about, he's plus 800 for rookie of the year. And it's like, well, one, trajectory to be rookie of the year when you're Trey Lance is to ball out and have a Justin Herbert level rookie season. The other is to come out, be a good game manager, and have Nick Bosa and all the yak from Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and all these guys obliterate everything in your path and like be kind of okay and win rookie of the year because you took this team on a deep playoff run. So that's why we looked at him. It's hard to project otherwise because when you're projecting the players, they're all young prospects moving up. I can't figure out what the Jaguars or the Jets are going to look like in a couple of years. I can guess the Bears are not going to look great in a couple of years because we have a lot of years of their GM screwing things up, so to speak. Whereas we have this track record with the 49ers of being able to, with this roster and with this coaching staff, go deep, go to the Super Bowl.
Rivers Bacown, by the way, says the over-under on his blood alcohol level is 0.99 for covering the Packers-Texans game tonight.
Rivers, were you in the press pool when they tried to kick you out? What happened? We need deets. Did they try to push you out the door? We need deets, man. Respond. Please respond.
Co the legend says he's looking forward to the Eagles-Steelers game tonight. Quez Watkins.
Yes.
Apparently, Jen Welter never got a calendar invite. I just sent emails.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Well,
Twitch casting is an experience. Jen, please reschedule with us. She's not.
Yeah, we'll have to reschedule with her. I fully apologize.
I'm
not used to using Outlook, so I'm not used to sending calendar invites.
There we go. There we go. I blame everybody but us, man.
Dallas at Arizona. That's another one that's on NFL Network.
Man, they picked
first round linebackers, Micah Parsons and Zaven Collins. I said 11. I'm not used to a linebacker wearing 11 like Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
And Peter Schrager responded that the two linebackers for Arizona are wearing like 25 and 9.
Oh gosh. Put them close together number-wise. Make them 8 and 9. Or 22 and 25 or something like that, because that's just going to confuse me more. Do want to see them. I mean, I do want to see them. They're both fly-around guys. We didn't see a lot from Simmons last year. I do worry that, like, they've been drafting all these positionless Swiss Army knife defenders in Arizona and just kind of throwing them on the field. I mean, Reddick, who's now with Carolina, was kind of like that until the end of last year where they just said, oh, go blitz. Go blitz.
Play edge rusher, and that's what you are.
Yes.
Rivers says what happened in Houston is just imagine a bunch of reporters are sitting around on their phones looking up NFL training camp policies. That's about the gist of it.
That sounds kind of dull. I was hoping for something more revolutionary.
I think Arizona and Dallas, there's some interesting receivers for Arizona because Rondale Moore, the second round pick.
Yeah.
And then like Keyshawn Johnson, will he stick? Isabella has COVID apparently, so he won't play.
Oh, boy.
And then the young linebackers, how much are you going to see of Collins and Simmons and how much you're going to see of Micah Parsons?
Yeah, you're right. That receiving crew is interesting. And when Kingsbury first entered the league, I was like, oh, my God, I want to see these guys running reverses and a million different types of screens and things like that. Maybe we will see some of that. Who will be throwing them the ball after Kyler Murray leaves? I'm looking at Colt McCoy and Chris Streveler. We saw Streveler a little bit last year. But yeah, I do want to see Rondale Moore. I was excited by Rondale Moore for what I saw from him on tape. You know, this is a guy who caught like 1 million passes in some of those games, a great yak guy. So I do want to see some of that. I'm kind of done with the Cowboys, though. You know,
Dallas has a lot of high pick. First of all, you're going to see all the Cowboys you want on Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
They do have a lot of high picks who are backups on their defense.
Yeah.
So looking at the depth chart, you've got a second-round pick who's a backup corner. He'll probably play. A third-round pick, that's Kelvin Joseph. A third-round pick, Nashawn White, who's a backup corner. He'll probably play. A third-round pick who's defensive tackle, Osa Odigizua. He'll probably play.
Yeah.
Real Cox, the linebacker who they made fun of for going to North Dakota State. He'll probably play. So there are some interesting young guys, I think, for Dallas. If you're up at 10 p.m. Eastern to watch Dallas at Arizona.
Yeah, I probably won't be. I'll catch it. I'll catch a replay. I'll tape it or I'll catch it on Game Pass. Jabril Cox is interesting, though, because he's like when I'm looking at linebackers in the preseason, I like those fly around guys. I don't necessarily see somebody who's limited to one role. I want to see them run. We saw Micah run real well last week, and I'd like to see Jabril a little bit more this week.
So Saturday, the first NFL Network game is Miami at Chicago.
Yes.
And that's at Justin Fields, because I'm guessing Tua is the starter. Tua will only play a couple series. Justin Fields, I think they said something about Fields playing into the second half in this week's game. So you're going to get a lot of Justin Fields in that game. Right.
Well, you don't need to see Nick Foles. I think they're
starting. I never need to see Nick Foles again.
Agreed, 100%. But it's different because I mentioned this in walkthrough. Matt Nagy a couple of years ago was like, I'm not going to play my starters at all in the preseason. Like, everybody's going to rest because Mitch Trubisky, he doesn't need the reps. He's Mitch Trubisky, folks. He is ready for action come September 10th or whatever. And we realized that was kind of crazy. So now we're going to see the Bears. But this is an exciting game because you're right. I want to see a ton of Justin Fields. I want to see him out there with the ones. It looks like we'll see him out there with the ones. And once Tua leaves, I think we'll see a little Tua. It is Jacoby Brissett out there. So when you talk about a team that's got a lot of depth at wide receiver, that's got Jalen.
Yeah, I don't know if Albert Wilson is back from a COVID opt-out year. I always felt Albert Wilson was pretty good. He may not even make the team for Miami.
He might not, although I hear he's having a great camp. And it's like, okay, Devontae Parker, he's in. Will Fuller, he's in. Jalen Waddle, that's number 3. He's in. Wilson, it's number 4. Now, Jakeem Grant's all their return man. He's number 5, probably, because you want him out there returning and doing a screen and bomb things. They've got Mac Hollins running around. He's Matthew Slater-like guy. So do you keep him as your number 6? Or do you keep Lynn Bowden, the runner receiver, former quarterback, I believe, from
Kentucky, I believe.
Right, who's been kind of bouncing around a little bit, very talented. And then Alan Hearns is on this roster too. Preston Williams is on the PUP right now. He's a good ball player. So it is a very, very tight depth chart. And there will be a real quarterback in Brissett.
And Brissett, so you've got, that's a good one. Chicago, Miami is a good one as far as preseason games goes. I may take some time out and watch that sucker.
Yeah, that's game of the week, man. Absolutely.
4 p.m., Denver at Minnesota. That's another one that's good because they're going to get some time of Locke and some type of Bridgewater because there is absolutely a real quarterback battle going on here.
It is. And it's been 50-50. And it's another thing where it's like a confirm your priors. Like, oh, Locke is really up and down. Bridgewater's steady, but he's not spectacular. And they're trying to make the decision there. But with both of them out there, then we are going to get a long look at the Broncos. They got a rookie running back who's interesting. Why am I drawing a freaking blank on his name?
For Vikings, there's Kellen Mond, the backup quarterback. Texas A&M, who a lot of us felt was the 6th best quarterback in the draft. He will play a lot in this game.
He'll play a lot. Javonte Williams is a running back for the Broncos, who
the second round pick. He's the one of the 2 North Carolina guys.
Yeah. Well, people want to see him. It's hard watching cornerbacks in the preseason, but Patrick Surtain's been getting a lot of good buzz. And again, it's the preseason. I can just I could go find, what is he wearing? Number 2. He's wearing number 2. So go find number 2 and just, follow him for a while. I don't necessarily need to see what the Vikings offense is doing. I can concentrate on a cornerback.
Yeah. Who's wearing number 2?
Patrick Surtain. Junior. Patrick Surtain 2 is wearing number 2.
It's hard to get used to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's an Ask Me Anything that was going to get us into trouble. Bill Houston says, which coach has sublimated his own mental illness issues into positives for running his team? I feel like John Gruden has to lead this list. It's early, but I feel Urban Meyer may overtake Gruden by the time the season is over.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. We don't want to talk seriously about mental illnesses and things like that. I mean, Belichick would probably...
I wouldn't say mental illness. I would say there are certain aspects of your personality that you need to be a successful NFL head coach.
Yeah.
And obsession is certainly one of them.
Yeah.
And there are times when you could see obsessive compulsive disorder certainly as a mental illness issue, but I'm not going to psychologically pass judgment upon the coaches of the NFL.
Neuroatypicality more than a mental illness. That being a little atypical is probably helpful for a lot of these guys. That level of drivenness, sometimes that level of overconfidence helps as well. I will say Adam Gase was a loony. Other than that, that's my one comment. We're not.
Yeah, you don't want someone with too much autism spectrum disorder though, because you need to have the ability to interact with other human beings. Like you really need to be able to read the emotions of other human beings if you're a head coach.
Right. Absolutely agreed. And some of that sort of chaotic, evil type mentality does work because it does motivate people. So Yeah.
So 7 p.m. games on this is Saturday night. The NFL Network game is Cleveland at Jacksonville. So I'm going to give the NFL.com points. The player that they mentioned as someone you want to watch in this game is someone who actually will play in this game. And that's Donovan Peoples-Jones, the wide receiver from Cleveland, who is on our top 25 prospects list. I don't know how much Trevor Lawrence we're going to see.
Right.
I'm
not
not going to say the name of that other person.
I want to see him. I mean, I want to see him play tight end.
You want to see him? Yeah.
Yeah.
But Cleveland, right? Cleveland's supposed to have a good amount of depth, so there should be some interesting players in this game. I don't like this as much as the daytime games, but because I don't think you'll see a lot of Mayfield. You're going to see a lot of Case Keenum, and I don't think I have no idea how Urban Meyer is going to approach preseason games because we have no, because college doesn't have preseason games, so we don't know how he's going to approach preseason games.
Yeah, he's made some comments about how he's letting Darrell Bevell and Brian Schottenheimer guide him through this, which is good. That sounds smart. Yeah, I think Brian Schottenheimer can handle guiding you through a preseason game. He game plans every week like it's a preseason game, so it's perfect in that respect. But I didn't mention the Browns and walkthrough in this game because it's it's a really set lineup. Like Peoples-Jones, you're right. I do want to see more of him, but I'm looking down at, and while there's going to be good players because they have good depth, there's nobody who I'm like, oh my god, this position battle is so interesting to me that I have to sit and really scrutinize it.
Right, because the guys who are sort of, are young guys who they're keeping Donovan Peoples-Jones. They're keeping Anthony Schwartz. There's not really a wide receiver battle going on. If there's anything, it's a battle of are they going to keep 5 guys or 6, right? The 5 they're going to keep. So I agree with you about the Cleveland roster. The 7 o'clock, there's a couple games that are on also not on NFL Network, but New Orleans at Baltimore. We already talked about the Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston thing. So I think that would be more interesting to watch. They're going to do Cleveland, Jacksonville on NFL Network because Lawrence, but I don't know how much Lawrence will play. I would think New Orleans, Baltimore, because of the New Orleans quarterback battle, is actually a more interesting one to watch.
Yep, I agree. I'll probably, Saturday night, I will be monitoring all these games. I'm probably going to have the radio set to the Saints game to get some idea, and then I'll go back the next day and obviously get a replay. But that's number one in interest that evening to me.
Jets at Giants at 7:30.
Snoopy Bowl. The Snoopy Bowl. Zach Wilson,
Snoopy
man.
Bowl. Well, I don't know. Is Snoopy still a MetLife? Didn't they drop Snoopy as their mascot?
I think they did, but I actually was Googling to see if I'm allowed to still call it the Snoopy Bowl, and I'm not allowed to call it the Snoopy Bowl. Right. So unless I get a cease and desist from MetLife Insurance, it's the.
This is the one where you said Clayton Thorson, the Giants' third stringer, is the worst quarterback you've ever seen. In training camps. I've been to a lot of training camps, some Eagles training camps. I watched Mike Kafka. I saw Tebow in the Jets and the Patriots and the Eagles camps, and Thorson looks. I don't want to say because you're ripping a guy. Looks like a high school quarterback when he plays. So it could be really hate watchable. And then I don't know who the Jets. Well, it's going to be very hate watchable because also the Jets. Mm-hmm. It's Josh Johnson or James Morgan, right? Because you don't know how much Zach Wilson you're going to see. A lot of these are just how much are we going to see of a rookie who's a first stringer? Are they going to play him like he's a rookie, or are they going to play him like he's a first stringer?
Right, and you don't know the answer to that. And a lot of times what I anticipate is 2 series in a baseball cap as they try to get his feet wet while giving him the most scripted game plan. And again, you watch these in a while, it's he's going to first down, play action, roll out, bootleg the tight end so he gets a completion and gets his feet wet. I think that's what we're going to see from these guys. Still want to see it, but not jumping up and down for the opportunity. Elijah Moore, who was another. There's a lot of guys named Moore who I like. This was the one from Mississippi.
He's a young stud. He definitely. A lot of people have been raving about him. He was third in playmaker score.
He's hurt though. I think I'm almost certain he's hurt right now. So we won't see.
Oh, that sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah. Denzel Mims is coming back from. I believe it was food poisoning, and he was getting talked about. He was really getting.
They talked about him being on the. They talked about him being on the bubble. That he was possibly going to lose his spot on the team. Yeah,
but it sounds like he lost a lot of weight because of food poisoning. And he's working his way back into shape, so that'll be somebody to look at.
Maybe they can put him on non-football injury or something and let him resuscitate. Cincinnati at Tampa Bay, 7:30. Apparently, Tom Brady will get playing time. I don't know if what that means is we're going to see 6 handoffs and then we're done.
We might.
But Joe Burrow is unlikely to play.
Mm-hmm.
But Brady apparently will. That sounds insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're mostly going to be seeing Blaine Gabbert, and actually, you're probably most going to be seeing Griffin.
Have you blocked out of your memory the amount of preseason action Tom Brady had in New England? He was always out there. It was his. It's clearly his idea. But I went back to NFL Jesus and went through the preseason record, so I wasn't losing my mind.
He did play. He would play like the first quarter.
Yeah, he would play the first quarters, and he would play the dress rehearsal. He would play like a half, 3/4 of it. But a lot of guys did. The first game, he would be out there and have 3 or 4 attempts.
It brings up an interesting question. Which game do you think is now the dress rehearsal?
I don't know.
I think it's the second one, because I think the third one will be what the fourth one used to be.
That makes sense.
It's just going to be everybody, where if you play in that last game, you're going to be cut. My guess is it's the second one that's now the dress rehearsal, but I'm not sure because they changed the schedule. So it's cuts no longer come out right after the last preseason game.
Right. Happy Labor Day. You lost your job. Yeah. I'm looking at it now, and it's going to be the week of the 12th, the week of the 19th, the week of the 26th. The week that really got erased was Labor Day weekend, where it was usually the 4th preseason game. Even the most dedicated of us didn't watch it.
That would suggest that the third one is still the third one, and now we're just not doing the fourth one.
That's possible. But I don't know if anyone I don't think anyone in the NFL had a powwow and decided that some teams might have different plans for this.
Yeah. Houston at Green Bay, 8 p.m. We already talked about. That's a good one, interesting one to watch with the sound off.
Yes.
Because you want to see Davis Mills and Jordan Love, and you do not want to hear them talk about Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. What will I have on the radio during that? Let me look at the schedule. Keep going with the schedule.
Kansas City at San Francisco, 8:30.
Yeah.
That's the Trey Lance show.
That is a Trey Lance show, and it will not be televised, I don't think, anywhere.
Not nationally televised, no.
All right. Well, that's going to be on the radio while
That's
I'm
the
watching.
reason to have Game Pass, unless you're currently boycotting Game Pass because of the disappearance of the All-22.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with having nothing, because you don't, I didn't get the IPA I like, so I'm just going to die of thirst.
Yeah, unfortunately, unless they fix it, Derek Claston is going to end up doing film room off of TV film this year.
Oh my goodness.
Same goes for Word of Mouth.
Yeah, and that's going to be super tough for both of them. But one thing is, with quarterback play, you get a lot of times when quarterbacks do something significant, you get from TV the behind the you get the behind the center view anyway, because they show 4 or 5 angles of it.
Yeah, Word of Mouth will be impossible without the All-22. I don't know how we would do it.
Yeah, well, Matt Verderame did say that it's going to be coming back. They're trying to get it back. They've heard our pleas. It will probably be coming back with a different price point. That's what a lot of us are guessing. And let's just hope it's not sticker shock for writers who don't have – we aren't made of money here, folks. We can't just be like, oh, yeah, a site license for whatever hundreds of dollars. It has to be somewhat reasonable.
Well, I don't know. Are you in PFWA?
I am. I get my updates from Howard.
We get a little Game Pass code as being a member of. You pay your dues for Pro Football Writers Association. You get Game Pass for free. So
that's right. I actually got that email a couple of days after I re-upped, so maybe I can get a rebate, because I never noticed that before. I'll check. You know what? I'll check my emails more regularly from PFWA.
Seattle at the Raiders, 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So first look at the new look Seahawks offense with the former Rams passing game coordinator, but no Russell Wilson.
No Russell Wilson. It looks like, from what I'm hearing, no Marcus Mariota. He has a leg injury.
Oh, that's interesting. So who on earth plays quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders with no Carr and no Mariota?
Case Cookus. They signed Case Cookus.
Or Nathan Peterman.
No, it burns. It burns.
All right. So we can skip that game. Don't watch that game. Chargers at Rams, 10 p.m. That one's on NFL Network.
Ooh. Unfortunately, it's Chargers at Rams. We're not going to see.
The Rams don't play anybody. The Rams do not play any first stringers in the preseason at all.
Right. So we won't see Stafford. We will not see Darnold. We can look at their running backs a little bit without Cam Akers out there. We have a lot of guys we've never heard of, but they're going to be behind the second, third string line for the whole game. It's a late night Saturday night game. It's very skippable. like for me as a writer who wants to keep track of all of this, I will probably be using that time to catch up on what was happening in the 7:30 games I couldn't see, trying to get some video of them, trying to get some reports from reporters, not necessarily finding out what the Rams third stringers are up to.
And then the final game of the weekend is Sunday at 1 p.m. And this was also on NFL Network. Carolina at Indianapolis. It's the Jacob Eason versus Sam Erlinger battle to maybe start week one, kind of, but probably not, because maybe Wentz is now going to be back for week one.
Yeah, well, maybe Wentz will be back, and I'm guessing he will find his way back for week one. It's Sam versus Sam because Sam Darnold will be playing. There are interesting players up and down both rosters. There's a lot of interesting players in the Carolina roster. It's just those quarterbacks. I mean, I guess obviously I do want to see Sam Darnold, and like they're going to play him a little bit. I want to see him in a different system, maybe look confident. I do want to see some of these young men, Eason and Erlinger and Hundley, et cetera. It's hard to get a lot of enthusiasm for this game based on you have one team that's just waiting for its quarterback to come back, and the other team that seems it's in a permanent rebuild.
Yeah, a lot of the young players, like rookies and stuff in Carolina, are offensive linemen. So you got to be one of those people with offensive line play to get really excited about watching Carolina in the preseason.
You got Chuba Hubbard, or Chubba Hubbard, as I like to call him because it sounds better.
Chubba Hubbard. Yes, right. He's the new backup to Christian McCaffrey, so we'll probably see a good amount of him.
Right.
They also, by the way, apparently the Panthers have running back Rod Smith and running back Rodney Smith.
Oh, no.
It's worse than the Jets having two Michael Carters. They have two Rod Smiths in the same position.
And none of them related to Rod Smith, the person we remember.
The actual wide receiver, no.
And the one guy who's been balling out apparently in Indianapolis, I pronounce his name wrong, 7th round pick, Michael Strawn, I believe. It's spelled Strachan. I got to interview him, young man from the Bahamas, and a really great young man. And he's been turning heads, quote unquote. So I do want to see him a little bit as well. So Michael Strawn is somebody who I'm interested in seeing a little bit of in Indianapolis.
Yeah, not a lot of rookies. Indianapolis did not have a lot of draft picks this year. They had no second and they had no third.
Right. But they do have Carson Wentz, and he will be posing confidently on the sidelines with his Gatorade.
Yes.
Get used to it. Get used to that sight.
That does it for the Football Outsiders Radio Hour. Thank you for sticking with us during this impromptu Ask You Anything show, which apparently was my screw up. Next week, we will try to have Dr. Jen Welter here.
Yes.
To talk about coaching and to talk about women in football and to talk about the first week of the preseason.
Yes.
And we will try to fix the Football Outsiders emojis so they work. We promise to do those things. So please
have a to-do list.
Watch Tuesdays for the Scott Spratt Fantasy Show, also at 1 p.m. Eastern. So Tuesdays and Thursdays. This show will be back next Thursday. Thank you for downloading us on your podcast app. Don't forget to rate the show and tell people that you like the show. It helps people find us if you rate the show well. Thanks for watching on YouTube. We'll see you next Thursday for the FO Radio Hour at 1 p.m. Eastern. This time we're going to get our time zones right with Dr. Welter. We'll see you. Everybody enjoy the first weekend of the preseason. Take care.